Hey folks, it's Cameron from the Brushfire Mind, and this is coffee. If you check out the link down below in the description, you can find ways to support us by buying us more coffee. Okay, thanks.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I thought I'd lead with that because, of course, we all miss Cameron. But good Lord, is he out there working his ass off, and I'm proud of the boy for it. I see Megan's with us with First Blood, and GCM joins us. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. So this morning, we're going to talk about Elon Musk's email. Talk about a shot heard around the world. And the response has been just chef's kiss. I mean, the tears, the salty, salty tears. It's been beautiful. And let me tell you about this. So I'm gonna share this article with you. I've got a few articles pulled up referring to this, and I want to open with this one about from CNN because it's, of course, critical of the email. We're going to talk about that. Federal employees told to justify jobs in email, or Musk says they face dismissal. And yeah, let's look at how they try to gaslight and catastrophize this email. Jason, good morning. Hey, Jason, I'll see you this evening. We've got soccer practice today, right? And I believe, for those of you who know where we are and what it means, our first game is this upcoming Thursday, and that should be a lot of fun. So, in President Donald Trump and Elon Musk's latest move targeting the federal workforce, employees began receiving emails Saturday afternoon asking them to explain what work they did last week, as Musk announced that failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. I want y'all to remember this phrase. Failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. Okay. Dad's watching. Good, because I'm glad you're watching this morning, old man, because you and I have had conversations about the, what have you done for the Army today? And this speaks a touch like that, but there is a time and a place. But several national security agencies, including the FBI and multiple other federal departments, advised staffers not to respond to the email immediately, suggesting the broader executive branch was not informed of nor prepared for the demand. Now, this I'm a little two sides about. I think it's perfectly reasonable for government employees, all of them, to be asked, hey, what do you do? And I'm going to get into that a little bit in just a minute here. But at the same time, there are agencies like the FBI, and hey, we could shutter the FBI today and it wouldn't break my heart. Same thing with basically the entire intelligence community. And I'm saying that as somebody who spent some time in the intelligence community. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that within the limits of what I can discuss, but directly related to this kind of a thing. Because I'll tell you right now, there are a lot of people in the government right now who, through no fault of their own, are useless and should be removed, or at least repurposed. And I'll get to that in a minute, because I was one of those for a little bit, a long time ago. And I'll tell you about how that happened. So the email came from the Office of Personnel Management's new HR email address, but had no signature. The subject line reads, "What did you do last week? Please reply to this email with approximately 5 bullets of what you accomplished last week and CC your manager. Please do not send any classified information and links or attachments." It continues. So CNN has obtained copies of emails sent to federal employees in multiple agencies. Many were sent with a high importance or red exclamation marks. The email blast came on the heels of a social media post by Musk threatening the jobs of workers who do not comply. Okay. There's a lot to get into there. Let's talk about the email itself for a minute. And let's pretend for just a moment that it is what it is on the face of it before we get into what Elon has said about it since then. If your employer asks you a question and you refuse to answer it, right, outside of the federal workplace, that is probably reasonable grounds for dismissal. Within reason, right? If my employer asks, what I did with my wife at home in my bedroom last night, obviously, well, he can go piss up a rope. But if he wants to fire me over that, there are some things that are none of your damn business. But what were you doing while you were on the clock taking my money is a very different question. Now, in the military, we run into it every now and then where you get an NCO or a senior NCO who's kind of a failed up type of guy. You'd be amazed how many people get promoted up, right? Now, most of the promoted ups, in my experience, and Sergeant Major, I know you've spent more time around the upper echelon of the NCO and the officer corps, but in my experience, the failed ups tend to stop at about E7 or 04, maybe 05. But there is a point at which we stop promoting people out of our hair, in theory, and I'm sure it still happens. But you'd be amazed how often you have somebody might have an absolutely useless PFC or specialist who's ready on paper to become a corporal or a sergeant, and the fact that means that they get moved to another unit is a great way to get rid of that soldier, to get them out of your ranks. Right? They're not so bad. They're not a danger. They're not a threat. Right? They're not so big a problem that you can justify throwing them out. Right? But you don't want them to hang around anymore. So where I worked in the intel world, that didn't work as easily. But when you get out into the combat arms world, most of your infantry, artillery, your combat arms units have rules on what happens when you get promoted into leadership. So if you're a specialist and you make sergeant, well, you've been an E4 with these other E4s and E3s, and you're all good buddies for a couple or 3 years. And the theory is that if you promote somebody to E5 and suddenly they're in a position of authority over all these people that they have deep friendly relationships with, that creates a conflict, and it's going to make it difficult for that sergeant to operate with the authority that he needs to command in order to lead those troops. So we do it differently in the intel world because we just don't have the volume or the space to shuffle people around as much. But in the bigger army, you tend not to keep a new NCO with the people that he's been working with as a lower enlisted for a long time. So that's probably a little too in the weeds for that. But you get these guys that are fail up guys, and they don't actually know what they're doing, and so they try to put off their responsibility of leading troops and getting the troops to do what they're supposed to do by rather than paying attention to what their job as the non-commissioned officer in charge is to issue orders, to read the training schedule, and in some cases write the training schedule and tell these poopies what they're supposed to be doing. And instead what they do is they ask the soldiers, well, what did you do for me this week? What have you done for me today? What have you done for the Army today? And it's this obnoxious whole power game. But see, here's the thing. The bad NCO that does that, he doesn't write your check. He is your leadership. I am your boss, the taxpayer. I am interested in what you did last week, and I have a right to be so. Right? You don't have your job. Your job doesn't have value because you create value by doing your job. Right? That's not how government employment works. The doing of your job is not the thing that creates the wealth which funds the doing of your job. No. I want y'all to think of government in a very particular way. Government is a luxury that we pay for. Right? As a business owner, as a business operator, my production business, I have to spend money on fuel to get to a shoot, on cameras to record the events, on computer equipment, right, to do editing and produce this show, for example. I have to spend that money. Kids in the house, wife, they want to eat every day and have a roof over their heads. I have to spend money on those things. The government is more like Netflix. It's a thing that I kind of want to have around because I enjoy the benefits of having it. And so I choose to spend that money. Except the government is Netflix with a gun. So you can think of literally everything that happens in government as a luxury that you are forced involuntarily to pay for. And I do mean a luxury. There is nothing the government does, nothing, with the possible exception of the military, which cannot be done better and cheaper by private industry. Not roads, not police, not courts, not even legislation. Literally everything the government does is done better by private industry. Check me on that. Go to the mall. Go to one of the nice open air malls with the high-end stores, right, in a rich neighborhood. See what the roads look like there. You'll find, like, a good example up in Gwinnett. It used to be Discover Mills. I think they changed the name to Sugar Mills when the local government took it over. But originally, the Discover Credit Card Company, built this mall up in Gwinnett County in Georgia. And all the roads around the mall had names like Interest Way, Credit Card Drive, right? Reward Points Avenue. I mean, I shit you not. In fact, you know what? They may not have even changed. I don't even know if they changed the names of the roads. That would be. Let me look that up real quick and share that. Sugar Mills Mall. We'll get it on Google Maps. So we can look at the satellite image and look at the names of the roads. I don't know if they changed them or not. Sugarloaf Mills Parkway. Yeah, okay, yeah. They changed the names of all the roads. So, as you're looking at it now, see, now it's Sugarloaf Mills off of Sugarloaf Parkway, and they changed it all to Sugarloaf Mills Circle, North Brown Road. But this used to be Credit Card Avenue and Interest Way and all kind of stuff like that. It was Discover Mills was the name of the mall. And let me tell you something. Those roads were pristine. I wonder if they are now. I wonder how those roads look today. I wonder if we can see in a satellite image if they look. Well, actually, you can't really, it's hard to tell how old this image is. But my point is, those roads, when they were first put in, they were put in by the private company that built the mall complex, right? You can even go back a few years ago, and Domino's Pizza ran this major operation where Domino's Pizza bought the maintenance trucks. They bought the dump trucks and the sheep's foot and the big steamrollers and all that. Excuse me. And they went out and patched potholes around cities, right? And they plastered the big Domino's logo on the side of it. It was a major marketing maneuver to say, hey, we're fixing your roads so that not only can we deliver your pizza faster, but you have a better just general quality of life, right? There are things like that can be done in literally everything the government does. So hell yeah, if I'm paying for you luxury service, you would better damn well provide me some luxury for my money. Does the public education system provide luxury to me for my money? Hell no. It provides to me people who work a drive-through and don't understand what the word dozen or the word couple means. Hey, let me get a couple of cheeseburgers. So how many do you want? 3, 4? Yo, couples, man and a woman, right? There's a couple. It's 2. Right? I didn't say throuple. I didn't ask you for a menage a trois of beef. I said couple. It's a word. It has a meaning. Hey, let me get a dozen cheeseburgers. How many do you want? Okay, how many cheeseburgers do you want? A dozen. I didn't say a baker's dozen. I didn't say a half dozen. I used a word. Pet Danny says, give him a $2 bill. Yeah. Sergeant Major points out the roads are still pretty good because they were built right. And I know that. I was hoping I could demonstrate it better with the satellite imagery, but it doesn't get in tight enough with a high enough resolution to really talk about the potholes that are. It's been a little over a year, but I took my daughter's, I took three of my 4 kids there for their daddy-daughter dates for their Christmas present last year. The escape room for my little man, bouncy house for my baby girl, and Penny went. I forget what Penny wanted to do, but anyway. So back to the email. The ask is, give me 4 or 5 bullet points, what you did last week. Now, y'all saw the thumbnail, right? Elon standing in the abandoned cubicle farm. That is the government, right? This is why this matters. That is the government right now. So let me tell you my anecdote about having one of those useless jobs, and I'm gonna have to be a little bit circumspect because of NDAs and the like. But I was involved. I went from being the training and operations NCOIC and working on the SOP that would later get copy pasted around the intelligence community for a specialized mission set. And the specialized mission set involved being able to drop a very specialized 4-man team to mobilize them and deploy them in a very short amount of time. And I mean, within the flight time to the target location plus 2 hours of advance notice, you're there, right? So it was flight time plus 2 hours of prep plus 2 hours of prep to go on the bird, flight time, 2 hours up and operating. And we're talking about setting up complex technical equipment and everything, loading the technical equipment, offloading and setting it up. And it was very, very fast. It had to be done very, very fast. And because of the nature of that, while we were building it and testing it and preparing it, I trained up 3 kids to replace me at the NCO desk for the training room, and went and worked with these other guys. And because part of it was being ready to deploy, we were given other jobs in other offices where, this is where you live, this is where you work, this is where you do the mission. But you are 24/7 on call for emergency deployment. And while I was in that position, it turned out that working in those offices, you're working with people who this is their full-time job, and they're not full-time on call for the ready deployment. Right? So for that reason, again, I have to be careful about how I describe this, but basically because we had to be ready to deploy at a moment's notice, the leadership and the management that we were working with in those other offices were incredibly reticent to actually put us on mission. So we basically got parked at a desk, and we'd get a little bit of piecemeal stuff every now and then. Hey, here's a task, do the one task. I'm like, okay. And 25 minutes later, it's like, give me something. Right. So I spent a year in that position where we did do the emergency deployments a few times. That's what we were for. But for at least, I'd say 6 months of that time, I was basically sitting at a desk watching TV, waiting for somebody to bring me an item. And that was kind of a unique situation. But the fact is, there's a lot of government employees and federal contractors. Mathey mentions the record daily production, but there are a lot of federal contractors, but not so much federal contractors, because a federal contractor is a lot different from a government employee. A federal contractor works for a company that requires them to produce value that they can monetize. A government employee does not. A government employee does not in any way have to justify their work, because essentially they're welfare recipients who occasionally achieve things. That is especially true if they've been elected, by the way. So you got a lot of people just sitting around. And I want y'all to understand this. One of the big controversies has been that Elon wants people to go back to work in the offices. I don't think Elon actually wants people to go back to work in the offices. I think Elon wants people to quit because they don't want to go back to work in the offices. Because one of our huge budget lines that's sucking the money and the life and the prosperity and liberty right out of our pockets is empty federal buildings. We have tens of thousands, if not millions, of square feet of office buildings that the government owns, is keeping the power and water on in, pays a custodian to go and check on occasionally to make sure that the building isn't infested with rats or squatters that aren't illegal aliens, right? It's cool if they're criminals. Our government loves them some criminals, but we've got just billions of dollars worth of vacant real estate laying around doing nothing. There's a story circulating virally right now about a cat who basically he was on leave for a couple of weeks, and when he came back, the whole office had moved, and he didn't have any contact information, and he kept trying to contact people, and nobody knew what to tell him to do. So he's just got this vacant building, and he said he was basically just sitting there playing video games and getting paid his regular salary for a year, and didn't have a boss, didn't have anybody to report to, wasn't getting responses to emails. Like the guy didn't even know how to just say, well, I quit, because they just kept paying him. Right. And it's like, okay, whatever. So let's talk about where this goes, what Elon explains about this. So you understand, there's people that are getting paid to work from home. Well, we've already busted some of them. Some of these people are getting paid to quote unquote work from home. And what they're actually doing is they log in the morning, and they've got a random mouse movement device to keep the monitor from going to sleep and to keep the website from logging off, so they appear to be there. And then they go to their other job. So they're literally just pulling down a government paycheck that is completely unjustified. So Elon came out and explained. Let me switch over to this tab. Tech billionaire Elon Musk said Sunday the email to federal employees asking them to report back on their weekly accomplishments is meant to spot outright fraud from people on the payroll who aren't working at all. The reason this matters is that a significant number of people who are supposed to be working for the government are doing so little work that they're not checking their email at all, Musk wrote on his social platform, responding to a post about the email. In some cases, we believe non-existent people or the identities of dead people are being used to collect paychecks, Musk continued. In other words, there is outright fraud. Musk, who's led the White House effort to expose waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government, announced Saturday afternoon on X that federal employees would soon get an email requesting to understand what they got done last week. Failure to respond will be taken as a resignation, he added. The message reviewed by The Hill told federal employees to please respond to this email with approximately 5 bullet points of what you accomplished last week. The email instructed employees to include their manager in the response, not to send any classified information or attachments to the reply by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time Monday. So that was last night, right? Unverified Bear asks, outside of national defense, is there anything the federal government should be responsible for? No, there's not. And I mean, literally nothing. The courts would be better handled as a private system where if you have a contract dispute with your interlocutor, you hire a judge to do the judging, right? You hire an adjudicator, you hire a fair witness, and pay them a reasonable salary. So by signing up, I agree to the term. What? No. Okay. As with many of Musk's moves and directives, the blowback was swift. Everett Kelly, president of the American Federation of Government Employees, released a critical statement Saturday. Okay, before I read Everett Kelly's statement here, he's the president of the American Federation of Government Employees. This guy is a grifter par excellence. This is a person like, we saw the press releases from the teachers unions during COVID, during 2020, when they were fighting tooth and nail to prevent schools from being opened up again. And they made it very clear, the teachers unions did, that students are not our priority or even our responsibility. Our responsibility is to the teachers and to the politicians that we fund. Right? Everett Kelly, similarly, president of American Federation of Government Employees, their responsibility is not to the taxpayer. It's not to the government. Their responsibility as an organization is to earn money, which they earn by charging union dues and taking political donations. And he says, it is cruel and disrespectful to hundreds of thousands of veterans who are wearing their second uniform in the civil service to be forced to justify their job duties to this out-of-touch, privileged, unelected billionaire. You know, funny story, Everett. You seem to have an opinion on this. Who elected you? Shit for brains. Says AFGE will challenge any unlawful terminations of our members and federal employees across the country. And let me reiterate, Elon said failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. Now, if you are employed by any entity, and the entity uses email for communication, you do have a responsibility, because it's part of your job description, to interact with that email. Right? If I stop checking my email as a private business owner, as a private citizen who does any kind of business, if I stop checking my email and I miss an email from somebody who wanted to buy services from me, well, then I don't get that contract. I don't get that job. I don't make that money. Right? Similarly, if I'm working for somebody else on a W-2 basis or as an employee where somebody else writes my check, and they send me an email asking me to do X, which is part of my job, and I just never get it done, how long do you think I'm going to keep that job? So non-compliance is absolutely grounds for termination in any job. Oh, and that's without even having to have the conversation about whether or not you've got malicious entities, federal employees who are active opponents of the Trump regime, who are doing the quiet quitting, who are actively working to frustrate the work of the administration. So Musk said early Sunday that he already received a large number of good responses to the email and suggested these are the people who should be considered for promotion. The new Trump administration strategy comes as Musk takes an outsized role in helping Trump slash the federal workforce. And this is a ridiculous statement. Takes an outsized role in helping Trump slash the federal workforce. Okay, it mentions the chainsaw for bureaucracy. Okay, you keep seeing these posts on social media. Who does Elon Musk think he is? Nobody elected this person. Nobody voted for Elon Musk. Yes, we did. If you voted for Donald Trump, you voted for Elon Musk. Now, I'm not saying that my opinion is that because Trump chose Musk, that you necessarily should agree with him having made that choice just because you voted for Donald Trump. No. Y'all remember, leading up to the election, for nearly a full year before the election, Elon Musk was vocally a part of the Trump election campaign. He showed up at rallies. He did stump speeches. Elon Musk was very much a part of the campaign. And one of the things that Donald Trump promised, one of the pillars of his platform was that if elected, we will create the Department of Government Efficiency, and it will be headed by Elon Musk. So absolutely, he was part of the package, right? Just like if you voted for Kamala Harris, one of the things you were voting for, or if you voted for Kamala Harris and she got elected, and all of a sudden genderqueer is showing up in all your kindergarten classrooms, You voted for that. All of a sudden, military service comes with a free cockectomy or an addictomy. Well, you voted for that too. Right? If Kamala gets elected and your 14-year-old daughter is getting a tax-funded yeet the teat, you voted for that because that was her platform. So yes, the vast majority of Americans did in fact vote, at least in part, for Elon Musk to do the work that he's doing now. Any argument to the contrary is simply false. Any argument to the contrary ignores the facts. So Elon's been pretty clear in his statements on this. The point to the email, he doesn't actually care if you did anything last week. You can lie to him. Right? What? I mean, you can lie. You can send him an email with 5 bullet points that aren't even meaningful or interesting. What did I do on my government paycheck last week? Let's see. I went to Starbucks, and then I went to the movies, and then I went out to lunch, and then I bought some cheese curls, and then I washed my pajamas. But you sent the email. See, he's been pretty clear about this. The point was, if you don't respond, then I don't have any viable evidence. If we're not in communication with you as a government employee, it's not that I don't know whether or not you're doing anything valuable. I mean, let's face it, you're a government employee. The answer to the question, are you doing anything of value, is no. The real question is, do you even exist? Right? And you may be John Smith, the government employee who doesn't do anything. But if you don't respond to the email because you're not checking the email, you're not at least in communication with your government employer, then you may still be John Smith. But the entity named John Smith, the government employee, does not exist. Which means that a taxpayer-funded paycheck is going to a thing that doesn't exist. Like Solyndra. Right? So if you sent a response, you're in the clear for now. If you refused to what amounts to follow a lawful order issued by the officers appointed by the president above you, then you're a non-entity. And part of the problem is that, like I just read from this article, there is a large piece of suspicion, a very reasonable piece of suspicion, especially given the amount of empty real estate laying around out there in government coffers, that there's a lot of fraud where you've got people who they're just collecting a check. And some of that fraud may not even be just going to a person who's stealing money from the government, right? There's a huge amount of money in the offing here. It will not surprise me at all when we discover that some of that money that's being paid out to otherwise non-existent entities is actually part of a coordinated effort to siphon money. It's basically embezzling, right? So, this seems like a very neat and clean way to try and rein in some of that trouble. This might get interesting. There is a stink bug crawling around on the camera. I don't know if I can reach, but I can. I got my little dust blower there. Okay. I could catch him and throw him outside after the show, but I don't I don't want to try to flick him off the camera or let him crawl in front of the lens either. Ain't gonna lie, he's been distracting me a little bit. So, we're gonna wrap it up. Actually, real quick, I see who TFU is. I don't know who TFU is. Who TFU is says, "Hey Chris, it's been a while, but I'm afraid I don't know who you are." And I mean, no need to out yourself with that anonymous name, but yeah. But yeah. So I guess in closing, it seems very reasonable to just ask people, right? Are you alive? Are you alive? I mean, if you can't answer that question, you don't get a check. That seems pretty basic. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put a pen in it right there. I want to say thanks to you guys for watching the show today. We appreciate it. Hey, like Cameron said at the top of the show, the link is in the description to support the show. You buy me a coffee. We take all comers, and I'm especially interested in subscriptions to that. So you can click on the link to buy me a coffee, and you don't have to ever click on it again. If you go in and select the subscription option, you can just send me $5 a month to help us build the show, help us build the studio, and grow the platform. And yeah. And like I said, if I can get everybody that's subscribed on any one platform right now, a few thousand on X, a few thousand on YouTube, a few thousand on Rumble. Well, a few hundred on Rumble, almost 1,000 on YouTube, a couple of thousand on X. If half of you got that $5 a month subscription, I'll make Mario and Cameron quit their jobs and go full time, right? So thanks for watching today, guys. We love you. Like, share, subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow.